there have been some large protests and demonstrations in Los Angeles over ICE immigration raids. And we don't want to, leave that untouched, especially since we live here. For me personally, it's like right in the area of where I actually live. And we just wanted to cover that at least a little bit. It's still something that's unfolding. I think there's going to be more protests this weekend. And I think there's a larger topic of the way immigration is being approached in this country that we also want to spend some time talking about. I think that's going to be our conversation, a longer conversation on the Patreon today, and something we're going to talk about in the future. But since this is happening in our neighborhood, we just wanted to touch on like the details of like what's actually going on, because I feel like I see a pretty big discrepancy between what's happening in my area versus what is getting chatted about online. So if you somehow do not know, over the weekend, there was a protest in downtown LA, specifically around this place called the Federal Building, in reaction to some ICE immigration raids that had happened, I think, just a couple nights before. And the ICE had come in with other federal officers, it sounded like, and arrested more than 40 people, and then had brought them from different areas of downtown LA, and then had brought them to holding in the Federal Building, because the Federal Building has like a jail or a prison. It's like it's crazy because when you drive through downtown LA, there's kind of this one big building you'll go by sometimes, and you're like, why does that look like a prison? And then eventually I realized it just is. So in reaction to that, these protests break out. It's happening in this area that is near Little Tokyo, which is like our Japan town. And I guess the main thing that I wanted to talk about, and because I have gotten as many texts as I did when the fires were happening.
Yeah.
From friends, from family, asking me, most of which don't even know I actually live in the area. They just know I live in LA. And I think the rhetoric around this protest right now is that LA is being like burned to the ground. And I cannot express enough that it's just not what's happening. This protest and what has been happening is confined to basically a series of like 4 blocks around this building. And while there have been periods of time over the past few days where that area has gotten pretty crazy, if you didn't read the news and you didn't like live and walk through that area, you wouldn't know this is going on, to be totally honest with you. And I think my frustration has been seeing the way people talk about the protests online, particularly Trump, and the opportunity he's used to like become so inflammatory with it, not only sending like the Marines and National Guard in as a reaction to it, but continuously pushing this narrative that LA would have been burnt to the ground. He will not remove troops until it is safe there. And I drive through that area. It's fine.
Dude,
there's
2 blocks
graffiti.
away, people are in a cafe. Like yeah.
Exactly. And I feel like the main thing I wanted to compare this to was the fires earlier this year, because the fires, shit actually was hitting the fan.
Yeah.
It was fucking crazy. There were downed power lines. The sky was red. There were multiple fires in the city that you could see from all over. Like, I remember
we all had friends who evacuated
Yeah.
or lost property.
I lost power.
A lot of people were affected.
Soot over everything, like all through the middle of the city.
Yes.
Literally entire neighborhoods burnt down. A coworker, a like good friend of mine, and his wife lost their home. And if you stood on the north side of LA through those fires, you could actually, if you turned to your left, you could see the Palisades fire. If you turned, like if you were just standing up, you could see the fire that was in Griffith or near the Hollywood sign. And then if you looked to your right, you saw the giant Eaton fire near Pasadena. It was surreal how crazy it was. And I feel like the news cycle in response to this protest is just blowing it way, way out of proportion. And that's not to belittle. I want to be really specific in that I don't want to belittle the reasons people are there, because I think that fight is like very, very just. And we'll talk about the reasons why people are there more. But for the actual, I think people have this perspective that our city is crumbling, and it's just nowhere near that.
Yeah, amen, man. I think the amount of misinformation I've seen on this thing online is insane. So I went to the protest. I was there in person, and I remember I was under the Shohei Ohtani mural in Little Tokyo, which is where they had one of the lines set up, and people were talking about how Shohei Ohtani had said they should lock the protesters up. Because I looked it up, and there's a viral tweet with 100,000 likes where he says that. It's from Talking Base Bell, not a real place. It's completely made up. And then Ted Cruz is tweeting videos from 2020 saying, wow, LA doesn't look very safe. It's not, I mean, there's just, and it's all going mega viral, and the retractions or the follow-ups are getting like 1/100th of the. So yeah, I mean, I went there, I walked around, right on the line in downtown or the corner of like 2nd and San Pedro in Little Tokyo. There's like, I don't know, there's graffiti and there's people yelling at the line or honking.
Yeah.
But it's like it is like 4 blocks. And then it's nothing else. So I just want to say it is exaggerated. And then I want to zoom out a bit, and then we can, we don't have to spend
And then we
forever on it.
get to the good news.
There's a lot of good news. And it's just my take here is like, if you flash back 1 week ago, what was the news cycle? It was Republican infighting over the big beautiful bill. It was Elon Musk calling Donald Trump a pedophile. It was bad economic data coming out about like, people aren't hiring, housing sales are way down, like what's going on? And that news cycle was all over the cable news, which we know Trump is watching every night in the White House. And so to reset the news cycle conveniently, now there's an easy target, which is the most hated state, California, the most hated city in California, LA, unpopular mayor Karen Bass. And he's picking a fight with that and making the whole news cycle about this off of like, 4 images. And people shouldn't burn Waymos. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
But like that is the one image. And again, all those Waymos were on one street in one spot.
At one time on one day. I think I don't think it's cool to burn Waymos. I don't think it's doing anything to do that, at least personally. But it's frustrating seeing that zoned in on like the rioters and protesters are causing incredible amounts of violence when that to me is the kind of the only thing that's happened.
Yeah.
There are a couple other like minor infractions, but when you're talking about a protest that goes on for days over the course of the weekend, people are just protesting, blocking the highway for a bit. To me, that is so disconnected from the rhetoric that is being spewed about it.
Did you guys, because you guys both were there for periods, did you see any of that destructive? Because you're saying it was contained to the 4 blocks.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like those 4 blocks, it is as destructive within those 4 blocks as being portrayed, or is even within that area, it's not at all?
I went back the next.
I've seen the same picture of the guy waving the Mexican flag on the car like 100 times. It's just like that, seemingly.
That is the one picture that's being used to like inflame and justify. Again, that picture plus the word insurrectionist is what is being used to amplify like the possible invocation of the Insurrection Act. An insurrection is like a revolution, like you are trying to overthrow the government. That is not anywhere close to what's happening on the ground if you walk around. And so it's frustrating to hear this, and it feels like Orwellian, like a doublespeak, because I know that's not what I'm seeing walking around.
Yeah.
And again, it's like if you were only allowed to upload a YouTube video if all of the comments were not stupid. If nobody could post a stupid comment. That's what it feels like, in that, like, if you can't have a protest because somebody is going to do something stupid in it, then you can't have a protest.
Then how could you have a protest?
There's going to be somebody that takes it too far or stupid. But 99.9%, I'm being serious, I talked to people, I walked around, are just upset at the way ICE is acting, which is like a reasonable and American thing to do. You can have that position.
I think if you guys want a clearer perspective on what's actually happening on the ground, a ton of people have live streamed the protests while they were there. So there's VODs to like go back and watch. Or if the protests continue this weekend, go on Twitch and watch people actually there experiencing it. Because I think it gives you a way better perspective on the time that it takes for anything significant to happen, if it happens at all, and gives you a good perspective on how almost like literally 99% of people there are there because they want to stand up and gather for a cause. They want to use the most basic part of the First Amendment, I feel like. So I just wanted to stress that as you follow this story, because I think it's going to keep developing and the protests are going to keep happening, just remember that it's a little different in person, and do your best to get a clear picture of what's actually going on. I think if you guys are happy.